This is a Groovy Boys production.
Hey guys, I'm your host, Mason Baugh, and welcome to The Lookup. No producer today, no co-host. It's a little strange today, but it's okay, because we have a very special guest. He runs By Any Means Basketball, which is a basketball training company, and has a large audience across social media, amassing over 250,000 subscribers on YouTube and over 60,000 followers on Instagram. It's Coleman Ayers. How you doing, man?
Not too bad, man. Appreciate you for having me, even though it's missing two guys. We'll still get to it, so I'm excited for it.
Yeah, it's all good, man. It's all good. So I'm just going to start out first right here with just kind of asking you about your career. So when did you know you wanted to be a basketball trainer?
Yeah, that's a good question. I've never really had it phrased that way. I would say, all right, so just a little bit about my background, how this all got started. So I was like 15, 16, never really remember the exact age, when basically just playing basketball in high school. So, I mean, it's like nothing special back then. But if you look at me, especially back then, I was like a 5'9" white guy, like barely touched the backboard. And I was playing in one of the top conferences, probably in the country and in the world in terms of basketball. So that right there kind of taught me the not only the value, but also like of hard work. So the value of hard work, but also that if you really want to, like, everyone works hard. So you have to look deeper into it, train efficiently, train smartly. So 15, 16, I kind of got set off on that path. But at that point, I was really just focused on playing. So started breaking down film for myself just to understand the game better, figure out what I can work out, what I can train. And I started making videos like for myself, put them up on YouTube. Basically just call them like attention to detail, just because I was like, if I'm making it for myself, I might as well put them up there. So that kind of gained some traction, and kind of simultaneously I started training some players on my team and some of my friends, some guys in the area that reached out eventually. But even then, it wasn't till like I was probably 18, 19 where I really wanted to lock into the teaching side. So I surpassed playing, or didn't want to go the route of playing college basketball just because I wanted to focus on teaching. Right. And at that point, I was like, all right, now this is time to really lock into the teaching side. So that's kind of when the coach trainer component really got, like, that was like, I was just saying, like, let's do it. Let's lock into this. But it was always kind of in the back of my mind in terms of wanting to teach, wanting to educate, and wanting to learn more and more every day about how to make athletes better.
Awesome. You mentioned that you probably weren't the most physically gifted person on your team, maybe not even the best basketball player on your team. So like from that angle, especially when you're still in high school, how do you get guys to, let them, even if they might be a bit more athletic than you or a bit more, talented than you, like how did you start training those guys at that point?
Yeah. So, I think the big thing is that when guys see that you're working hard and you're on a team of players who are dedicated, who are going to play college basketball, because the vast majority of players on my team ended up at D1, if not D2, D3, but primarily D1. So if I was in an environment with a ton of dedicated players, the area in itself, the DC area, as well as just my team itself, was very, like, it was essentially run like a college program. So that being in that type of culture, it's not only about talent, but also about what you're putting into the game. Right. And I think when guys see that you're putting that level of dedication and hours into the game, then they're going to trust that it's something that they want to join on board as well. So that's why, like you said, I was definitely not the most gifted, but I definitely worked the hardest, and that's kind of something I've always prided myself on. And then at that point, people see that and they want in. So that's the main thing for that.
Right. So you're very young and you're pretty accomplished. You have a very large following and a lot of people admire you, especially, I'm sure, your clients and people that you've trained and everything. So how do you think hard work has brought you from just having a dream of being around 16 years old and wanting to be a basketball trainer to, how old are you right now?
21.
21, and already having a huge platform and having, I'm sure, people just wanting, you to train them left and right in your Instagram DMs and everything. How do you think hard work propelled you to where you are right now?
Yeah, I think the thing is with social media that anyone can kind of bypass like the old traditional route of like getting an internship and then building connections and then doing this, doing that. And if you're like a lot of people work their ass off, but they also don't understand like the ways to leverage social media to leverage their connections.
Yeah.
But none of that's possible without working your ass off. So for me, educating myself from a young age, 15, 16, I wasn't the type to wait till college to get educated on, the science of sports, science of basketball. I was learning that from the time I was 15, 16. That was a lot of work. Also just getting my social media started early, like the YouTube aspect of it. A lot of, late nights, Saturday nights, all my friends would be going out. Literally every Saturday night I would sit down, watch college football and just like, and pretty much just knock out videos, read books.
Yeah.
Sounds like a very like nerdy thing to do, but I kind of pride myself on that a lot of the time, just because that helped me build a foundation. And then once I've started to get a little bit older, I'm still young, like you said, but now that I've started to get a little bit older, it's now starting to kind of manifest itself. In the sense that I've been doing this for 5-6 years now in terms of education on a weekly, even daily basis, and then also on court stuff, training guys like 5-6 hours a day. Now that's where I'm at because I'm just trying to get as much experience. So every step in the journey, it's a new like something added on where you just have to continue to push through, continue to work your ass off, and then at some point it's all going to pay off for pretty much anyone who puts that work in.
I'm sure that inspires a lot of young people. It definitely inspires me because I'm 15 and I'm trying to get, into journalism or media or things like that. And I think me starting this show and I'm trying to start things on YouTube and edit video and everything. So I think that it definitely inspires me to see how successful you are and how young you are from when you started. I like that a lot.
Appreciate that. Yeah, I always tell people now, like some of the stuff that people do and like traditionally you can't get into it when you're until you're 30, 40 years old. Now, like there are people who are 20 years old, 25 years old getting into it. So it's breaking down barriers for sure.
So your whole brand is this by any means thing. Your Instagram handle, your YouTube name, by any means basketball. But you also have, I think from what I've seen, it's more of a wider kind of vision called by any means. So what is your vision for by any means in the future?
Yeah. So primarily, definitely focusing on athletic performance. So, opening a facility, continuing the training side of things. But that's kind of like, that's what one would expect. The rest of it is definitely going a little bit more into the culture. So, like a clothing brand, using it to inspire people, not just through basketball, but through other means. So I think it's definitely like a mantra that can be applied to anything and anyone at any time of life, which is kind of cool, and it leaves it open to a lot of possibilities. So definitely the clothing, I'm trying to, I don't have much time to do that, but I'm definitely trying to get that started a little bit more. And then just using the idea of like by any means to inspire, to motivate. And then as the brand continues to build, I'm trying to do more and more, implement that more and more.
Right. Yeah, I like your website a lot and the merch you guys have of by any means. I think a lot of those shirts are really cool, and you guys have
Appreciate
that
that.
shirt with the word definition of by any
Yeah,
means.
yeah.
I like that. That's really cool.
Appreciate that. Yeah, that's one of my favorite ones.
Yeah. So going back to you training and your clients and everything, what is I know you're still growing with your clients a little bit, and I'm sure a lot of them are younger than you, but what is like a big success story, I guess, with a client? Like maybe you brought someone from being not very noticed to having like D1 offers or something like that. What is like something that sticks out in your mind as a big success story with one of your clients?
Yeah, so I'm a lot of my guys, I've been training them for probably less than 2 years. But it's cool to have seen like the constant progression with a lot of them. So whether it's like one guy entered this like after I got back down to Miami like earlier this summer, he was like pretty much had crippling knee pain, tendinopathy in his knee. And now we're going like 7 days a week with a little bit of pain, but not much. Like those little wins. Another guy who shot 25% from the 3-point line his sophomore year. Junior year, 50% from a three-point line, which is just an insane jump.
Yeah.
So it's like those little wins, and then I'm still waiting for like that big win where like someone just takes off. And obviously I can never take credit for it, but it's cool to be a really small part along the journey. And when that happens, it's going to be a fun day. And then I expect even more and more of those in the future as my guys continue to work their ass off. Because pretty much I only like to work with guys who are willing to invest the time, invest the energy, and not just kind of, half-ass everything. So it's kind of a recipe for success, and I'm excited to see which wins, kind of come to the forefront.
That's really cool. What would you say, with your clients and everything, what would you say is the most rewarding part of your job?
That's a very good question. It's definitely off the basketball court. So seeing the impact that I can have on players like off the court. So if I train player, obviously most of it's on the court, but taking it off, like I'll have guys go off to college and they send me messages that like pretty heartfelt messages that are always kind of touch me. And it's cool to see like that investing a lot of time into a younger guy, or even someone who's as old as myself, investing time into them can really, and the fact that I can be a role model as well.
Right.
Even considering that I'm 21 years old, I'm not like I'm not a 60-year-old like wise man who's been through everything. Like I'm still figuring stuff out for myself, and the fact that I can help them kind of through their early stages of life, just like I had a couple of years ago, is pretty cool, and that's very rewarding.
So getting a little bit deeper into the actual training you do, I watched a few of your YouTube videos, and I don't know that much about basketball. I have a decent understanding, but I've done like just some of the things you talk about, I can't really understand. So, and a lot of the time you talk about science, like science-based methods of getting better at basketball and everything. So how does science apply to basketball? Because that's a big part of your brand.
Yeah, man, it's everything. Like, and which is crazy because a lot of people take it from a very surface perspective. Don't really apply any science at all. But if you look at everything, I mean, even if we're going deep into like, or the physics of like a jump shot, which I'm not that well versed in, but more so on like the biomechanics side, skill acquisition, so like psychology, which again is a science. Literally everything in basketball can be boiled down to a science.
Right.
Everything that is a science, we can kind of reverse engineer, learn how to train that, and as a result, build better basketball players. So
yeah, that's really cool.
Everything is a science, and that goes for every sport too: football, soccer, baseball. Everything's a science. And the more that we're able to understand the game in terms of its kind of scientific details, the better we're going to be able to take advantage of those and train athletes for, or to kind of fit with the things that make the best players scientifically.
Right. So we kind of talked about your clients and their dreams to go to college, and some of them are in college playing basketball. So what do you think your path would be right now if you chose to play college basketball? Yeah.
That's a really good question. I think I would still definitely be, doing as much as I can on the training side. But it would be tough, especially because most of the schools that I had opportunities at were D2 and D3s, which if you guys are familiar with like D2s and D3s, great schools, great sports. It's a lot of underrated hoopers, football players, whatever. A lot of them are in smaller towns, and it's a lot of grinding for, like, you really have to love the game. And I do love the game, but I love teaching and kind of building towards something bigger even more. So it would definitely be, I don't think you would really know my name as much, just because I wouldn't have enough time. I would be focusing on myself, probably trying to go overseas to play. I guess that'd be next year because I'm a senior right now. So it would definitely be completely different, which is why I tell some players, like, don't try to force yourself into playing a college sport. if there's something you love to do right now, then chase that. And if it's hard to do that kind of simultaneously while playing a sport, don't force it. Just because everyone around you is going to college to play doesn't mean that you have to fit in and do that if there's something else that you want to pursue.
Awesome. Awesome. So, you kind of talked about how, because I think the quality of your videos probably wouldn't be as good. I think you
Yeah.
kind of touched on that if you played basketball and you had a lot going on in that, because I mean, that's obviously huge playing college basketball, especially trying to be the best player in your team and you being as hardworking as you are.
Yeah,
So
100.
now that you kind of full-time train and make videos and everything, how do you consistently keep the quality of your videos up? Because the editing, the voiceovers, and just the analysis and all your YouTube videos, Instagram clips are always top notch, and they're always very, very well put together, I would say.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think the main two things for me is, one, I've been doing it for a long time, so the editing is very easy for me. Now it's just about understanding concepts, applying them into the game of basketball, and making unique posts, unique ideas.
Right.
But in terms of like managing the time for that, I try to block out time here and there every day just to edit, I mean, obviously to read, to research all this, but also to come up with stuff that can be posted on Instagram or YouTube, because that's the stuff that can reach hundreds of thousands of people.
Right.
A lot of trainers, especially in their early stages, you'll see them going like 12 sessions a day, no time for anything else really, which is like, it seems like you're grinding. I mean, you are 100% you're grinding, but that's not going to get you, at least in the short term, that's not going to get you as it's not going to cast as wide of a net if you're only working with, like, let's say 12 players a day.
Right.
I can work with 5 players a day, put out a video that reaches hundreds of thousands of people, and then I'm reaching
Yeah, for
100,005 people. Like, it's definitely cast a wider net. And I think with social media now, more trainers probably should block out time to really understand the social media side, the content creation side, and even like down to like our virtual training programs. That's like, that reaches, I think we have like 8,000 people in what we call the virtual academy now, which is more than I could ever train in a lifetime.
Yeah.
And that's just through the virtual training program. So definitely kind of putting everything in perspective and understanding that the only way to get better as a trainer or to reach people is not just working with people one-on-one.
Yeah. I want to touch on that virtual training thing a lot more, because I know did you have any virtual training things set up before, like coronavirus and everything?
Yeah, we had, so it did kind of change a little bit. We started last summer. Yeah, last summer. So we had probably 6 programs out, and then we filmed like 2 or 3. They're ready to drop like right when Corona kind of became like
Right.
a very limiting thing. So we had to shift gears. And then at that point we had to film like really quickly what we call the at-home academy, because everyone was just locked in the house. Like, no one is going to buy a program where they have to go to a gym or a park when all the courts are down, all the gyms are locked. So we had to shift gears really quickly, and come up with that at-home academy, which is actually pretty fun to make just because it was so unique. Like, everything is done with literally just a basketball. We had strength work with all body weight, like household equipment. So that was fun. And now we're starting to get back into like if you have a court, you can do this. If not,
Right.
there's still that option to do it without like a court. So it definitely kind of threw it off. And then like the virtual side has kind of taken off a little bit more once COVID kind of became a big thing, just because people need that. Like, they're not trying to go do group workouts with 10 people when obviously that's an inherent risk to that. So it's a good question though, and it definitely did kind of shift things a little bit.
Yeah, I definitely think I wouldn't say, it sounds kind of bad to say you capitalize on that opportunity, but you could definitely ramp up the virtual thing right now.
Yeah.
Because, and
100%.
especially a few months ago when things were locked down a lot more across the country. Yeah. So I think, like I said, not really capitalizing on it, because that kind of comes off wrong. But I mean, you're still helping people out, and people still want to train for the season or whatever, if they're going to have a season. So
yeah, No,
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, and the thing is, I mean, it's definitely capitalizing if you look at it from a business perspective, but it's also helping a lot of people because $15 for 2 months of workouts is not only helping me make a living, but it's also helping them become a better basketball player for
Right.
less than like, I don't know, like 50 cents a day, or it's not 50 cents, maybe 50 cents a day. I'll have to do the calculations there, but very cheap, but also kind of, if you shift to the other perspective, definitely kind of taking advantage of that situation.
Yeah, I think that if people are really like touched by your mantra by any means and by your personality and your work ethic and everything, I think not just the sessions can help them, but I think they might be inspired in the future to get a
Yeah.
trainer and work as hard as you have. So I think that
100%.
it definitely, if you train 8,000 people and three of them are as driven as you are, I feel like that's probably a success in your eyes
Oh,
because, yeah,
100%. If one of
yeah,
them is, or if I can, I would say like if I can change one person's life
yeah,
with a project or whatever it is, that's a success to me.
yeah. All right. So at the end of our show, usually we have some quick questions and a segment at the end of our show we have. So I'm just going to ask a few quick
All right.
questions. They'll be more not as based around your career.
Yeah.
So do you like watching college NCAA basketball or NBA basketball more?
College. Um, I mean, I love both, but just the energy and the style of play in college is probably is just unmatched. So, but I do love both. Like I watch both like very, very religiously.
Right. Um, Did you ever play any other sports in high school, or or like throughout your life, or did you just stick to basketball most of the time?
Yeah, I mean, bro, like I used to be a legend at baseball. Like I was, I mean, I don't want to say legend. I'm definitely just like I feel like an old head being like, yeah, man, I was but when I was when I was like probably middle school, I was like that was my main sport, and then honestly, I just got bored of it.
Yeah,
I needed like a little bit more like stimulation, just like faster pace. So kind of quit that. And then that's when I really, really went into basketball. I also played like soccer here and there, just on like rec teams with my friends. Um, other than that, like I tried to play football, but I wasn't athletic enough.
right.
Would have been fun, but it is what it is.
So in high school, when you were playing basketball, was there ever a moment where you were this, this is like, when did you start playing basketball first? Let me just get that out of
Probably,
the way.
probably like 5 years old, honestly.
Yeah.
So I've been playing my whole life.
So was there a moment, sometime in high school where you had a big game or something, you were like, this is awesome. I love basketball. I want to do this. I want my life to be dedicated to basketball to some extent.
Yeah, I think so. My junior year, I wasn't even playing much. Like I was definitely a bench warmer my junior year because we ended up having 12 guys that went D1 on that team. So obviously
Good Lord.
there's not that much
That's
space
insane.
for me. But just being in that environment, and then like we got up to number 5 in the country. And we played Montverde, which is like, if you guys know, it's like one of the best
Yeah.
teams.
Yeah. I've heard.
And so they were number 2 in the country. We were number 5, and we lost on like literally like a game winner. But at that point, like that kind of point in the season, I was like, damn, like this is the fact that I'm like able to be on this team around like this caliber of basketball is just like is great. And then that
Yeah.
next year, I was getting more time, and it was fun. It was really fun, and just kind of the energy of every game, and that's when it was like, damn, this is an awesome sport right here.
Yeah, for sure. I know that you played for one of the best basketball programs, one of the best basketball conferences in in the whole United States. So, and I think a lot of teams around the country would be ecstatic if they had one D1 player
Yeah.
on their court. So, who do you think is the most like maybe in your whole high school, like the whole high school's history, or just like when you were there, who do you think is the most successful person that you've known that has gone to your school?
Uh, so when I was on that team, I was talking about my junior year. We had Ant Cowan, who was point guard from Maryland. He just graduated. Jeff Doughton, who just graduated point guard for Rhode Island. My man Casey Morcell, he plays the UVA now. And then if we want to talk about, I mean, there are so many more. So I'm not trying to disrespect
Yeah.
anyone they ever
Yeah.
end up working with. But in terms of the history of it, we had Chris Wright, who ended up going to Georgetown, was like a legend back in the day. If you guys are from the area, you'll probably understand that. And then Nolan Smith went there for a little bit, so played at Duke.
Okay.
Definitely a pro. But it really started to get good like a couple years before, because we had a new coach come in, and that's when like he just started to pick it up, and it
Right.
got legendary real quick. So, but that team that I was like my junior and senior year was like absolutely insane.
So how much were you able to travel around? Like, where do you think is the farthest from Maryland you traveled? Um,
When yeah, so went to San Diego my senior year, um, Atlanta, Nashville, South Carolina, Myrtle Beach in South Carolina, New York, I think, Philly.
oh my goodness.
I'm trying to think if there's any more. Probably missing one, but those are the main trips, and all of them were just very fun. It's always cool to travel like for a sport that you love, because it's everything going together at once, like with your teammates and everything. So that's always really fun.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm gonna shift gears a little bit. So who do you think will win the NBA title this year? And who do you think maybe a dark horse team in the NBA playoffs in the bubble right now?
Yeah, so I think I've been saying Lakers like every anytime someone asks me,
Yeah.
I've been saying Lakers, but if they don't pick it up soon, I think it's really up for grabs. And then I could say the same thing for the Clippers. They haven't been looking good. Paul George hasn't been looking good.
Yeah.
But I think the Lakers will end up winning it just because LeBron's not gonna let them lose. In terms of a dark horse, I'm going with the Miami Heat.
Okay.
Just because like I'm down here in Miami right now, but it's not because of that. It's primarily just because they play so well as a team. They seem to really love each other as a team, like playing with each other. Jimmy Butler kind of has a home. And I think they can beat the Bucks if I mean anything can
Wow.
happen in the bubble. And if Giannis doesn't have like a second guy, if Chris Middleton doesn't step up, none of these guys step up, then I think that he could end up
Yeah.
winning if they make it that far. But it's really up for grabs right now. It's going to be very, very, very interesting every step of the way.
Well, what is your opinion on, because I know in the bubble there's a lot of talk about how it's kind of like shooting in an open gym.
Yeah.
And I've seen players say, players that went to smaller schools, players that, grinded a little bit more to get to where they are, that had to play in like open
Yeah.
gyms with almost no one in them, that they have a little bit of an advantage because they played at games where there weren't many people there, and they're not used to that. It's not comforting for them to be a huge crowd like it might be for a player that's been successful their entire, college, high school,
Right.
NBA career. So what do you think personally? Would you play better in an environment with a big crowd, or would you play better in an environment where it's more of an open gym setting?
Ooh, that's a good point. Before I answer in terms of like personally, I think that's why you see guys like LeBron who aren't playing as well.
Yeah.
Because if you think, when's the last time LeBron's played in an empty gym? Like probably 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So it's that like when you consider that, it's like a lot of these guys. That's a really good point. But personally, I would say, man, that's tough. It's all right. So if I make my first shot of the game, I'm gonna play better in a packed gym.
Yeah.
If I miss my first shot, and that's like a lot of the things you'll see, like it's easier for guys to. You're not seeing as many shooting slumps. I don't think. You're not seeing as many like big runs because the crowd isn't into it and kind of taking everything and magnifying that. So like when you're able to feed off the energy, I love feeding off energy in pretty much anything I do, not just on the court, but like I was always the player that enjoyed big crowds, especially if I could like get my first shot to go and I'm like, all right, I'm feeling it, like the
Yeah.
energy's there. But if I miss first two shots, I'm like, oh shit, like now I got to recollect myself, and it's much easier to do that in an empty gym. So that's a very cool consideration for the rest of the. Like I've always said, the finals is going to be very weird. Like
Yeah, for
winning
sure.
and then just celebrating with like no one in the gym. It's
Yeah.
just it's going to be a very weird dynamic, but it's fun to watch.
Do you think this might the bubble situation might favor rookies a little bit? That a lot of maybe they're as talented as anyone else in the league, but their nerves kind of get in the way of maybe being a superstar. Do you think that could benefit them in the bubble?
Yeah, I definitely think so. I think any player who gets nerves before the game is 100% favored just because I mean there's no crowd. Obviously there are millions of people watching you from around the world, but it's so
Right.
indirectly from like cameras are in there. It's not people in there
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
they're saying a bunch of stuff to you while you're on the court. Like there's a lot of crowd noise. Is just a very different dynamic, and I think that definitely favors rookies and other guys who are still kind of getting adjusted to the NBA environment.
So on your YouTube channel, you have broken down a lot of players. I think a few that you mentioned talking about the bubble a few minutes ago. So our recurring segment on the show is called the wheel,
Hmm.
and what the wheel is we spin this wheel, and it's customized for our guest every time, and it's either like a little bit of a challenge or just
Yeah,
some questions um, for our guest about their career or
I like it.
just something in their space. So I'm sharing my screen right now. Can you see what I'm
Yeah.
looking at right now? So
Oh yeah, I like it.
what this is I just put some random like NBA superstars
Yeah.
on this wheel, and what I want to ask you is, once I spin this wheel, I want to ask you if there's any underrated parts to this player's game.
Oh yeah,
You
I
know,
like it.
because even if they are a superstar, I'm sure you have enough insight to say, even if Steph Curry gets spun, like obviously his strongest point is shooting threes, but would there be an underrated part to maybe him
Oh
driving
yeah.
to the basket or something like that?
Oh yeah,
Just using that
it's
as
gonna
an
be fun.
example.
It's gonna be fun. I'm
All right.
excited. Oh yeah.
Damian Lillard.
I like it. I like it because I actually dropped a video on Damian Lillard
Yeah, I
yesterday.
watched that. That's funny. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I was watching a ton of film. Um, hmm, I would say the one underrated. I mean, there are a couple. So everyone knows the range by now. Maybe a couple years ago they didn't. Everyone knows the clutch gene. Like dude just knocks down shots in the clutch consistently. Um, Everyone kind of understands that he can dunk on guys, but I think the most underrated part is either his like step back game in the mid range. He's kind of gotten away from that, but also finishing with contact um, off of 2 feet. So
Right.
he's very controlled once he gets going to the bucket. He's never out of control when he's especially like attacking bigger defenders,
Yeah.
shot blockers, and most of the time, or at least a lot of the time, you'll see him going off of 2 feet to finish at the rim, which I've been emphasizing a ton with a lot of the players that I train, and on my YouTube, Instagram, just because I feel like it's so important. So next time you guys watch Dame, so I guess tonight they have a game. Hopefully they stay in the playoffs a little bit longer, but next time you guys watch him, try to just pay attention to and be conscious of how he's finishing at the bucket, how in control he is,
Mhm.
and how often he goes off 2 feet. I think that's kind of a cool part of his game to watch.
Yeah, you mentioned the whole clutch gene thing, and I've heard a little bit of a debate about that, whether the clutch gene is a real thing or if it's just good players, like being good players in that moment.
Yeah,
So I've always thought that was really interesting.
yeah. No, it's still. I think everyone's still kind of trying to figure that out about the clutch gene.
Yeah.
I think there's definitely some component of it that goes into it.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's interesting. Zion.
All right. Let's see. I think his non-dunk finishes are definitely something to consider. Everyone looks at his dunks. Everyone looks at all this, but just how easily he's able to finish, even without like dunking the ball, is underrated. And it should be easy if you're that athletic, getting that close to the rim, being able to fight through contact that easily. But
Yeah.
you'll definitely forget it.
All right, I'm gonna do one more, and then I'll. All right. This happened on our last episode too. It was fun. The same thing. Russell Westbrook.
All right. For Russ, I would say it's the fact that he hasn't really gotten injured with I mean, it's kind of ironic to say that considering that he's out right now with an injury, but pretty much every time he's gotten injured, it's a contact injury. And if you look at guys like Derrick Rose, other really athletic players, Tracy McGrady, who have kind of had their careers hindered with non-contact injuries, you just don't see that in Russ, and it's impressive because he's kind of learned to play a little bit more in control, and also his landing mechanics and overall just technique in terms of how he moves is very solid. Right. And I think that's kind of prevented some injuries along the way.
That's interesting. So yeah, that was the wheel. That was our segment we have on every show. With for example, radio hosts, we have a little bit of a challenge. Like if they cover a lot of NFL, we have all 32 NFL teams, and we ask them to name 5 players from whichever team gets spun, yeah. For example. So yeah, this one wasn't as much of like a direct challenge, but I liked the insight you gave on those players.
Yeah, that's cool. That was fun.
So we have one final question we always ask. Our show is called The Lookup. So our question that we ask at the end is always, what would you say to the people that look up to you? You know, it could be anything. You have a large following and everything. You have a lot of people that subscribe to your message. So what was one thing you would say to people that look up to you?
So, I mean, getting away from the generic, just like keep working, like hard work brings everything. I would say regardless of what you want to do, what industry you want to get in, what profession you want to do, whether you want to play professional basketball or do something in the basketball industry or something completely unrelated, is just leverage the people around you, build a lot of good relationships with people, and do it for the right reasons. And that's kind of the best way of quote unquote networking. So like just be like a very, very genuine person, allow relationships to come to you, and then like reach out to people, be cool with not everyone. Obviously don't reach out to everyone and just be buddy with everyone, but at the same time harvest good relationships, and then do things for people and don't expect anything in return, but it will generally come back to you, because I do believe in karma, more so on the good side. Like if you do a lot of stuff for people for the right reasons, then people will end up doing stuff for you, and it's kind of a mutual relationship. So not just networking, I would say, but also just like building genuine relationships with people and taking care of those relationships. And that's going to get places, I think, regardless of what profession you're in.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Thank you for coming on. And yeah, this has been The Lookup. Thank you guys for tuning in, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.
Appreciate you for having me.
This is a Groovy Boys production.